the conference group. Please enter your passcode followed by the pound key.
Commissioner Conaway also online?
Yes, we do.
Is Kim Drexler on the line?
Yes, I am.
Harold, are you there?
Yes,
Can you
Mr. Chair, I'm here.
Yes, we can, Commissioner Drexler. Good afternoon, everyone.
Thank you.
And welcome to the Public Service Commission meeting of July 29th. We have the reading of the meeting minutes of July 15th. Does anyone have any corrections or changes to the minutes as submitted? If not, could we have a motion?
Move that we adopt the minutes of July 15th as submitted.
I second it.
Commissioner Correa seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
The motion carries.
Aye.
For the information of people on the call or on live stream, before we do our regular agenda today, we're going to do the hearing as set forth under section 6.1.
Can you, Delmarva, present us to just say next page? So we'll put it on the screen.
The next thing we have is a presentation by Delmarva Power and Light, state of the company, and that is going to be on the next page, I believe, on the live stream. That's me. It's my Public Service Commission shirt. Hope everyone likes my shirt. So do we have Marissa out there to start this presentation?
Yes, good afternoon, Chairman Winslow, and good afternoon, Commissioners. It's Marie Swift-Layton on behalf of Delmarva Power. Thank you for having the team here today. We are here to present our annual State of the Company presentation, and this is an opportunity for our CEO of Exelon Utilities, Calvin Butler, CEO of Pepco Holdings, Dave Velasquez, and Delmarva Region President Gary Stockbridge to provide an update on the operations and activities of the company. And this is one of the ongoing PHI-Exelon merger. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Calvin to begin the presentation, and we'd be happy to take questions at the end of the presentation.
Thank you very much, Marissa.
Thank you.
Marissa, thank you. And let me just begin by saying good afternoon, and thank you to Chairman Winslow and the fellow commissioners for inviting us to join you today. I'm pleased to be with you, even virtually, sharing the tremendous benefits that Exelon is bringing for Delaware customers and communities. Serving the people of Delaware is our privilege and our mission. I'll begin with slide 3 here, where it talks about how Exelon Utilities deliver electricity and natural gas to approximately 10 million customers in Delaware, the District of Columbia, Maryland, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania through our Delmarva Power, Pepco, ComEd, Atlantic City Electric, and PECO subsidiaries. Year after year, our 15,300 utility employees successfully operate a vast and complex transmission and distribution system that spans 25,000 square miles in 4 of the largest metropolitan areas in the United States. We've done it with a track record of achieving high customer satisfaction and delivering operational excellence. Please allow me to highlight a few of the accolades which demonstrate that track record. Exelon was named to the Dow Sustainability North America Index for a 13th consecutive year in recognition of our corporate sustainability performance. We earned the designation of Best Place to Work on the Human Rights Campaign's Corporate Equality Index for the 9th consecutive year. We were named Indeed.com's 50 Best Places to Work as employees emphasized our excellent company culture, competitive pay and benefits, and mission-driven approach. We were named one of Diversity Inc.'s top 50 companies for diversity in recognition of our work hiring, retaining and promoting women, people people of color, people with disabilities, LGBTQ, and veterans. At Exelon Diversity, we know that diversity drives our success, and that includes ensuring we have diverse supplier spend. Exelon and its operating companies seek out supporting business partners who reflect our diversity goals. We spent $2.4 billion with diverse suppliers in 2019. In 2019, Delmarva Power purchased $73 million in goods and services from diversity-certified suppliers, which equals 25% of our total yearly purchases. This year has been unlike any other for those of us at Exelon. We were challenged, as so many were, by the COVID-19 pandemic and the tragic events related to racial discrimination and violence targeting Black Americans. In light of that, Exelon this summer asserted our values that Black Lives Matter in a public statement, and as we have been previously, we continue to live our values related to diversity and inclusion. We engaged all employees, holding tough conversations on race for large and small groups, facilitating webinars and panels on the topic, hosted by our leaders and staff. Those weren't one-and-done conversations. They continue weeks later, and we are strengthening our commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion every day. At Exelon, we are also furthering our commitment to combat climate change, underscoring it with the launch of our $20 million Climate Change Investment Initiative, supporting startups that develop technology to address climate change, including in Wilmington, Delaware. The Climate Change Investment Initiative is in addition to Exelon and the Exelon Foundation contributing $51.5 million to support a variety of charitable organizations. Separately, our employee giving campaign generated more than $13.3 million, and our employees volunteered a record 240,000 hours of service at nonprofits. Exelon is committed to partnership with local communities in which we operate to facilitate economic growth through financial contributions, volunteer work, and partnerships on large-scale projects. Now, I'd like to transition to tell you a little bit how proud I am to be the leader of Exelon Utilities. As many of you know, I took over this position on a permanent basis in December of 2019. I'm proud to be the leader of Exelon Utilities because I'm leading a team of committed and dynamic individuals who care about our customers and the communities where they live and work. A major part of my job is being able to work with Dave and Gary to strengthen the local bonds, use our scale to make a regional impact, and ensure DPL receives the national support necessary to deliver and exceed our customers' expectations. If I can take you to slide 4. I'm also proud to lead an Exelon Utilities team focused on operational excellence. That vision has not changed. Our reliability is outstanding, and we are prioritizing safety, especially as we work to keep customers, employees, and contractors safe during the pandemic. And we are prioritizing a smarter, cleaner grid and workforce initiatives. Through our Exelon Utility strategy, we focus on customers and communities, emphasizing reliability, clean energy solutions, innovation, and partnering with our communities and all customers, regardless of income or zip code. We are committed to helping Delaware and the Public Service Commission accomplish its objectives. Delaware customers benefit from the collective innovation and commitment of the 15,000 employees across Exelon Utilities. Slide 5. I'd like to talk for a minute about what the combined strength of Exelon Utilities brings for Delaware. We work together across our fleet of utilities through our peer groups to identify best practices and align on common standards. Our comprehensive size and scope enable our operating companies to access unparalleled benefits made possible by our collaborative framework. Exelon Utilities, in partnership with our operating companies, has consistently demonstrated the capability to plan, finance, and execute on utility capital projects while minimizing customer rate impacts. Our utilities enjoy economies of scale in the procurement of goods, services, fuel, and purchased power. We leverage best practices in the areas of customer satisfaction, safety, and reliability. We have access to industry-leading technology and innovation, and we can access shared resources, including priority access to mobile emergency response crews, mutual assistance programs, and assistance with human resource needs. Simply put, Exelon Utilities helps our operating companies deliver increased value to our customers and our communities. We bring to bear here in Delaware our tested, proven ideas and best practices from across the company. We saw that during our ongoing COVID response, as we were able to reap the benefits of a national supply chain, getting access efficiently to vital PPE that protected Delmarva Power workers and kept customers safe. It's the same type of benefit we see when we provide mutual assistance during severe storms. Together, Exelon Utilities is more responsive and nimble, and that benefits Delmarva Power. When it comes to cybersecurity, the safety and reliability of our energy grid are constant priorities. We apply extensive measures to safeguard our systems against potential physical and cyber threats through a multi-layered defense approach focused on preparation, prevention, response, and recovery. We also conduct regular drills and collaborate with government and industry partners to develop and deploy new ways to address constantly evolving threats and protect the safe, reliable service our customers expect. Slide 6. At Exelon Utilities, we are working to reimagine and reshape what it means to be an energy provider, transforming the energy grid and growing our connections with the communities we serve. We are partnering to set safety and performance standards, deliver innovations, and adopt best practices that will help us meet the future needs of our customers and, most important, exceed those expectations. Through our Exelon Utility strategy, we are leveraging our infrastructure and digital tools to help create fully connected communities in which the grid is the backbone for an array of products and services that improve the connectivity of everything from power and water to people. Through this flexible strategy designed to meet the needs of our customers, we are first and foremost modernizing the grid for reliability and resilience for customers, investing to make our infrastructure stronger, smarter, and more secure. We are hardening our system against cybersecurity attacks, extreme weather events, and increasingly the sustained impacts of climate change. How often do we hear we're having that 100-year storm every 5 years? We are promoting customer choice, giving them control of their energy and meeting their new and evolving needs. That means providing customers the tools, energy efficiency programs, and education to take control of their energy usage and environmental impact. We are leading the fight against climate change, connecting customers with clean energy solutions for a sustainable and healthy future. And we are supporting communities, powering the economic health and well-being of the diverse communities we serve. I'll give you a few examples of how we're bringing our Exelon Utility strategy to life. This summer, Exelon announced our commitment to fighting climate change through fleet electrification. By 2025, we will electrify 30% of our vehicle fleet, and by 2030, we will increase that to 50%. This transition will be achieved through a combination of fully electric vehicles, vehicles with plug-in idle mitigation units, and plug-in hybrids. Converting our fleet will be done in a financially responsible way, and we will maintain the operational integrity of our vehicles to ensure we have the ability to continue to keep the lights on and the gas flowing. Through the Connect Wilmington Smart City initiative, we are working with the city using our advanced infrastructure to deploy smart LED street lighting and smart city technology. For the demonstration project completed last year, Delmarva Power funded the smart sensors and smart city technologies as well as their installation to test their functionality, operations, and potential value for Wilmington and other communities the company serves. At Exelon, we know it's just not about the technology. It's about people, especially the young people of our communities. That's where Delmarva Power's work with the Teen Warehouse comes into play. The Warehouse is a collaborative model bringing together more than 50 youth service partner organizations with the goal of providing a variety of youth-oriented programs focused on health, education, and recreation during afternoon and evening hours. Through several pilot projects, we are helping the Warehouse become not only a place for teens, but a place to learn about clean energy, electric transportation, and sustainable farming and agriculture. A place where teens have the educational opportunities to start on a path to becoming the next generation of energy leaders. Again, I want to thank you for allowing us to serve the people of Delaware in such comprehensive and diverse ways. With that, I'll now hand it over to Pepco Holdings CEO, Dave Velasquez.
Calvin, thank you, and thank you, Chairman Winslow and Commissioners. I always look forward to the opportunity to brief you on what we have been doing at Pepco Holdings and also at Delmarva. Now, Gary will get into more specific details of what we're doing at Delmarva Power, but I wanted to give you a brief overview of PHI, the broader company. Also provide some insights into how we're responding to the COVID pandemic crisis, and then also briefly review the 2020 priorities we've established for the company. If you flip to the next slide, slide 8, let me start. I think everyone here is familiar with Pepco Holdings, with our 3 utilities, Delmarva Power, Atlantic City Electric, and Pepco in the D.C. area. We serve almost 2 million electric customers across that territory. In Delaware, we have the privilege of serving both electric and gas customers as well. Overall, we have a little over 3,900 employees across our property. It is important that we're able to access the best talent to be able to serve our customers. As you see in the center of that slide, we go to get that best talent to make sure that we're getting it across a diverse set of people. 61% of the recent promotions at PHI reflect the diversity of the communities we serve. 63% of our hires last year were also diverse hires. And overall, that continues to grow our diverse workforce. In 2019, 53% of the PHI workforce was diverse, and we look to continue to increase that diversity. Again, we are only able to best serve our customers by accessing the best talent, and it's important that we do that. Also, not just do we have the internal employees to help serve our customers, but we also have a host of outside partners as well. And you'll see in the upper right-hand side that there also we want to make sure we're reaching most broadly to find the best talent we can. And 31% of PHI's spend in 2019 was with diverse suppliers. That reflects $377 million of spend, which was a $45 million increase from 2018. And we have goals to continue to increase that in 2020. The last thing I'll mention, and I'll talk about this in a little more detail later, is we're also committed to continually improving our safety performance. And we were able to achieve first quartile PHI safety performance with a considerable improvement in our OSHA recordable events. But as always with safety, it is something that we are never satisfied and never stop until that number is actually zero. So that's just a brief overview of Pepco Holdings. If we flip to the next slide, slide 9, I did want to spend a few minutes talking about how we've been responding to the COVID-19 pandemic. And I'm going to talk a little bit about our safety and about providing essential services. Gary will get into more detail around customer support, the Restart Delaware, and our charitable efforts in this as well. You know, as I mentioned earlier just a moment ago about safety, nothing is more important to us than the safety of our employees and our customers. And we know that the impact of the pandemic has been very significant from a public health perspective, but also from a financial perspective to our customers. And these impacts aren't over. We continue to see them continuing and expect they'll continue for some period of time. I do want you to know that we too have been impacted, not just our friends and neighbors, but also we've had some of our employees that have been infected as well. As of the beginning of this week, we had 22 total employees across PHI that had been confirmed positive with COVID-19. 5 of those were at Delmarva, and of those 5 at Delmarva, 3 were in Delaware. And glad to report that all the employees that have been affected, are continuing to recover. So one of the things also we're doing is on our job sites, we have a number of employees, as you'd expect, that are continuing to work in order to provide the reliable service that's even more important now as well. And we've been very closely following both CDC guidelines and state and jurisdictional guidance. And as they have evolved, we've continued to change our work processes and procedures to make sure they are the best practices we have in place and to ensure our employees are working in a safe and healthy environment. So, for instance, we have a company-wide policy related to wearing of masks. We've provided masks to all of our employees, whether they're working remotely or whether they're required to report to an office or a job site. And so, about half of our workforce is currently working remotely on a regular basis. So the employees that have had to continue to come in and work to a job site, we've implemented a number of protective procedures. As I mentioned, we're following CDC and state jurisdictional guidance. We're stopped all large gatherings, including meetings. We're having field crews and personnel respond directly from home or to pre-established mustering sites to help reduce everybody coming into a service center at once. We've staggered shifts for crews. We've limited and moved crews to reduce interactions. We provided additional vehicles or allowed crews to use their personal vehicles to report to job sites to limit wherever we can people riding in the same vehicle as well. We're also beginning to think about, as states are beginning to lift some restrictions, we have a team here at PHI, a team at Exelon Utilities, and a team at the broader Exelon. We're all working on reviewing the reopening orders, determining what steps we need to take in order to ensure responsible reentry when that time comes. And I will say we have not yet made a decision as to when we will start to bring any of our remote employees back. We will be very conservative as we do that, very concerned about the safety and health of our employees. We'll be following all sorts of any state or CDC guidance as we do that, but we don't expect that we'll be bringing back a lot of employees in the very short term. And it'll take some time to do that because we want to make sure we do it responsibly. We have ongoing, and as we continue to work, we have ongoing electrostatic cleaning. Some places we have pre-screening stations and temperature screening technologies in place. We've also been it's been very important to us that we communicate regularly with our employees and that they have access to information. We have a special website set up where employees can go and get the latest information. We post answers to questions that come up. Myself and my leadership team have been having either weekly or bi-weekly calls. We call them all calls with all employees to answer questions that have come up during the week and provide them with information. And that's in addition to the regular meetings that occur at a more local level with employees and their managers and their executives as well. So let me talk a little bit about providing essential services as well. Summer, as you know, brings an increased threat both from storms, heat waves, and all that. And I want you to know that we've continued to do the work that we have been doing, and we do every year to make sure that our grid is ready for both summer storms, hurricane season, all the regular maintenance, inspections, upgrades, and critical repairs that we do. We have been doing, in addition to that, we've been paying special attention to circuits, for instance, serving hospitals and other, I'll say, most critical infrastructure. And we've actually used new technology with drones equipped with cameras to do aerial inspections. At the end of those inspections, we've prioritized any repairs that needed to be made. If there's more in-depth corrective maintenance, we've put those plans in place and are working on those plans as well. And we continue to work to trim trees, to install new underground equipment, to install tree-resistant aerial cable. All the critical infrastructure projects are going forward and are on schedule. We continue to install innovative technology to improve system reliability, including switches and other equipment that can automatically restore service faster or isolate damage so there's fewer customers affected as well. So I just want you to know that we are continuing to move forward with that. If you flip to the next slide, I just wanted to spend a couple minutes talking about our priorities. You can see at the top of slide 10 our overarching mission, which is to power a cleaner and brighter future for our customers and communities. And again, it's important to us that this includes not just our customers, but our communities that are so affected as well. I've spoken a little bit about safety already. One of the priorities is driving safety and security, and I've spoken a bit about that as well. And Calvin has spoken about cybersecurity and how seriously we take that and the effort that both Exelon, PHI, and Delmarva Power put in to making sure that we have a multi-layered defense approach, both preparing, preventing, and then being ready to respond and recover should anything happen. And that includes regular drills. We collaborate with government and industry partners as well, and continue to deploy new technology to protect us as well. Over on the right-hand side, talks about delivering reliable and excellent service. Gary's going to talk in more detail about that, so I won't spend much time on that, but want you to know that is of our highest priority. That is our core mission, is to make sure we're providing safe, clean, and reliable power to all of our customers across there. Underneath that, we talk about achieving regulatory policy and financial outcomes. I'm not going to comment on any of the regulatory initiatives we have underway. From a policy standpoint, I believe we're aligned both with the Commission and with the state on their key policy goals and continue to work to make sure we're doing what we can to help advance them further. Financial outcomes are important to us because if we're financially healthy, it means we can access the capital markets to continue to invest for our customers at good rates. The last two things I'll comment on are growing our culture through diversity, inclusion, and innovation. Calvin has commented on how we've responded to some of the recent racial incidents that have occurred and how as a company we're really trying to drive the diversity of our workforce, but also the inclusion of our workforce and the innovation. And this is critically important to our success. At the heart of it, we are a people business, and we only succeed because of the people that we have who are serving our customers. And the anecdote I've used with our employees a lot is, we have a lot of infrastructure out there, and people are inclined to think about us as an infrastructure business. And I get lots of comments from customers. I have never gotten a letter from a customer complimenting me on how beautiful a pole or a pad mount transformer looked. But I do get compliments from customers about what great service one of our employees provided them. We are a people business. We are a service business, and we need to access and motivate the best talent to be able to do that. And the last thing I'll comment on is fostering partnerships to create connected communities. We actually have if you trace our roots all the way back, we actually go back to 1844 in the coal gas at Delmarva Power. If we trace all the way back that far, so that's 176 years. When you've been in a community for 176 years, you become very deeply rooted in that community. And we see it as both a privilege and a responsibility, not just to serve customers, but to serve those communities we're rooted in. And it's a commitment that we take very seriously as a company, but I'll also say our employees also live into that commitment and that responsibility. And extremely proud of our employees. Last year across PHI, they volunteered over 42,500 hours, which was a 10% increase over the prior year. And we continued to do events over the property. We've had over 500 volunteer events that we sponsored to be able to help our communities. So with that, let me stop. And again, thank you for this opportunity to be able to speak with you. I always appreciate it and appreciate your time. And let me turn it over to Gary.
Dave, thank you very much. Appreciate that. If we could turn to slide 12. So couple things I'd like to talk about on this slide as we get started. First off, as Dave said, really happy to be speaking with you. I wish Chair Winslow and Commissioners, I wish I could be there personally. I always look forward to that, and hopefully our next one will be that way. But it's good to be talking to you about our performance in 2019 and more recently. As always, I'm here representing all the men and women who spend each and every day achieving these results, and I'm extremely proud to be representing them. You know, they step up through every storm, as you know, and are heading in when most people are heading home. But over the past year, they've really risen to, I think, every challenge that COVID-19 has thrown our way, and continue to perform and get good results. So I'm really pleased to be able to represent them here today with some of the things you'll be seeing on the slides ahead. Also, just a brief mention. I think Calvin and Dave both talked about safety, and I don't have a specific safety bullet on this slide, but as you know, safety's kind of core to what we do. You know, just recently we had a rather tragic event with a young Drexel co-op named TJ Hunt just south of Dover while he was performing work for the company. Despite intensive safety training and all the right safety equipment and safety behavior, unfortunately, due to the actions of a driver, he was hit and killed on the side of the road. And I think when we have episodes like that and things that come across our team like that, it reinforces how dangerous our work can be day in and day out, and how much we really need to stay focused on safety every day. And so you can be assured that it starts at the senior levels with Calvin and through Exelon, but it translates down into each and every one of us every day in what we do. On this slide, some of the stuff is typical to what you've seen in the past. The number of customers is along the same lines as well as the employees. But two things I wanted to focus on. One is, you know, we mentioned here about our customers connected to energy assistance, and this is the number from 2019. We really do recognize what's coming in the months ahead as we seek to help our customers in our state recover from the impact of COVID-19. So we know the challenge ahead, and we're up for it, and I'll be talking on a future slide a little bit more detail about how we'll be dealing with that. And the other point is diversity and inclusion, just like safety is permeating throughout the entire organization. And as you can see, it manifests in two ways on this slide for us at Delmarva Power. One is I'm extremely happy to see us at a 25% of our spend is going to diverse suppliers. It's on par with the Exelon numbers. We think we can continue to improve, but we've come a long way, and each year we've increased that number, and it's a good thing to see. And the diversity of our hires is really making a difference in our workforce as we're starting to see a representation within the company that matches the communities that we serve. So those two things really emphasize how those points trickle down all the way from Exelon down to Delmarva Power, and we're happy to be seeing that. We can turn to slide 13. So earlier you saw the similar slide, and Dave mentioned that I'd be covering the other two components, safety and providing essential services. And I'll be talking more about the customer support and what we call restarting Delaware. And the customer support side of this, much of this is you're aware of, as you've been kept in the loop, I think, by Marisa, as we've gone through the COVID-19 stages, starting from when early on we suspended service disconnections, late fees, and we restored previously disconnected customers. And I can assure you that since that time, we've worked very hard to continue to stay in contact with our customers and to help them understand the steps they need to take to really keep control over their bills and make sure they're not getting excessive to the point where it'll be difficult to address them as we start to come out of this. Most recently, we work with staff and we work with the public advocate as well as the other utilities in the state to come up with a consistent approach to starting back up our dunning process, and have done so, started in the month of July, And I think, if you go through that process, there's a window in around the September 1st timeframe where, some customers could be getting shut off. But I can assure you that is a last step for us, and we consider that having failed in trying to help our customers. And so we're doing everything we can in this process to use a number of tools at our disposal, whether it be LIHEAP. As you know, we implemented the arrearage management program, which is having good success and will help some of our customers. We have our Good Neighbor Energy Fund, and we have and will continue to spend an awful lot of time with our community partners, gearing up for and finding ways to help our customers recover as we hopefully come out of the impact of COVID-19. We've set up over 1,400 installment plans with customers. We've sent out some soft letters to really just encourage them to reach out to us, because from the past, the best thing we can get is a customer that reaches out and starts to talk to us about what they're going through, because often that's the start of a conversation that helps them get onto a plan and successfully recover when they're behind on their bills. So we understand what's coming, and I can assure you there's a number of folks across the company working on how to help our customers as we move forward in the next critical next month or two. The second category we talk about is restarting Delaware, and I think of that in a couple different ways. First, some of the financial support that we've provided is listed here. So some of you may recall I think we were one of the first companies to work with United Way to get across DPL $100,000 out into the community to help those most in need when the pandemic hit back in the March-April timeframe. Recently, I think we've communicated and sent on to you the press releases for two other initiatives. One was an effort to help small businesses, which in Delaware is translating to working in partnership with what used to be called First State Community Loan. They're now True Access Capital, but they'll be working with small businesses to have a combination of grants and loans to help them get back on their feet, and that'll be across the state. And so we're looking forward to that partnership with them and the funds that we put into that, as well as the $75,000 into a lot of the tech school programs. And for us, it's a partnership with Del Tech, as we recognize that's a lot of the areas that are going to need training and work on maybe different skills for future jobs. The tech schools are kind of on front and center on that, and so we're there with partnership to help them. So those were some of the immediate things we did, but we also, from a workforce development perspective, are very engaged with the state. I know each of you, I think, had some level of engagement with what came out of the merger in terms of our partnership with Del Tech and Delaware State around our funding that we provided them around workforce development. I think most of you are aware I still am chair for the Workforce Development Board in Delaware, serving Governor Carney, and there's a tremendous amount of activity as we speak relative to some pending executive orders that will be directing funds to do additional training in the state to help lower the high level of unemployment that we have, and as I said earlier, where needed, bring additional skills to those who may not be going back to the same job they've gone to before. So we're extremely engaged in that, and then more close to home, we're starting up a trade-related internship to hire program. So we're working with a number of our partners, and we're going to actually be taking individuals coming in at the high school level, working with them, and hopefully move them right into jobs after the internship. So that's an exciting new program that's really flowed out of the whole Exelon focus on workforce development and recognizing how important workforce development is to the states that we serve. So again, heavily involved in that area, and that's the area we consider restarting Delaware. You turn to slide 14. This is, when I talk about being proud to be up here in front of you on behalf of all of our employees, this slide 14 is exactly the kind of results I'm talking about. We've talked about this before. I think, within the Exelon family of companies, we have a very strong heritage of customer satisfaction within Delmarva Power, and especially within Delaware. You can see our statistics still stay high with our customer satisfaction overall, as well as the reliability satisfaction. But then below that are even some more important, and I think all of which you are aware of. The J.D. Powers results for both residential and commercial was an incredible accomplishment of the team that they were extremely proud of in 2019. And then most recently in 2020, we've seen these two new awards, one around Environmental Champion and the other Most Trusted Utility Brand, which really during a very difficult time of COVID-19, it meant a lot to us to receive that and to believe that our customers really do trust us, because it's difficult times, as you know, out there. And so to be in that position with our customers is something we take a lot of pride in. So great results. There's been a trend over the past couple of years of similar results. And so, again, attribute that to the day in and day out work of each of our employees in serving our customers. We can slip to next slide, 15. So as Dave mentioned on the reliability, we always try to give you where our performance is, and it is very consistent with where we were last year. We've done a little bit of flattening out in 2018, 2019, but as you can see, I think as I spoke to you last year, I talked about a tremendous amount of the best practices that we've pulled from the Exelon family. It really drives this kind of performance. And so the 33% improvement on frequency and the 49% improvement in duration from back in 2012, that trend has been kept up and moved forward with the work we do day in, day out with our sister companies, understanding the best practices, implementing those best practices, and getting the kind of results we're getting here. We also, in 2019, I think we shared with you that we got the PA Consulting 2019 Reliability 1, which was for outstanding mid-size utility around our reliability performance. So again, not only good when your numbers are doing good, but externally you're getting recognized. And so, very pleased with where we are. As we've spoken in the past, can't take your eye off the ball with reliability. It's always a moving target, and you have to focus on it every day. So we don't take it for granted, but we're happy that the trend still is in a good place relative to where we were in the past. And literally, our customers are seeing some of the best satisfaction they've ever seen in the history of the company, which is really great results. If you could flip to slide 16. This is one that was mentioned earlier by Calvin. At a high level, I'll go into a little bit more detail. I'd say it's been one of the more enjoyable projects that the team has been engaged with, all focused around Wilmington, and again, some of which you've heard recently in some of our press releases and other things that we've shared with you. But step one for us was the implementation of a pilot, and the map on this slide shows you where the pilot area was. And then within that pilot area where we did the LED lighting upgrade, we've created a testing environment where the city can test out other one-off pieces of technology that go and clearly link into a smart cities concept. And so, as you know, they themselves have invested in shot spotters, but this technology allows another variation of gunshot detection. We obviously have the smart light capabilities of understanding when our lights are out, being able to modify the intensity of the lights and timing of the lights. But there's also traffic monitoring, pollution, air quality monitoring, smart parking, digital signage. There's just a lot of other things that are coming out that can be linked into this network. And so this pilot area serves as a testing ground for that, so the city can decide whether they want to do a larger deployment across the city. And as we speak, we're having great conversations with the mayor around a full-scale implementation, and it is our hope that will come to fruition over the next year or two. Got a lot of good feedback from the customers where the lights have been put in. Very little modifications, maybe one shield we had to put up because it was a little too bright for somebody in one of the lights. But in general, the feedback we're getting from the community and from the mayor is that they're very satisfied with the lighting upgrade, and then also happy to be working with some of the pilot areas. So that's an exciting project for us, and we hope we hope that'll as we go in the month or two ahead, that'll start to translate into a full scale conversion of the 6,500 lights in Wilmington. The other grouping of activities, and it was explained earlier by Calvin, is around the teen warehouse. And the way the teen warehouse evolved, for some of you may be familiar with how things work in Delaware, the purchase of care subsidized funding for some of our kids in daycare has some requirements that actually has the unintended consequences of keeping teens from being in the community centers where you have daycare centers. So Logan Herron, who runs Kingswood Community Center, had the forethought to think of trying to create a place that was designed by teens for teens, and to help them with after school and other activity that keeps them focused on the right things. And so he created this warehouse concept, and we've been an integral part of that. We have someone who serves on the board, but we've also been talking to them about their needs. And so there's a number of projects we have. We have the V2G, which is going to help them with transportation. Some of the research end of Exelon is working with the university, Willa Kempton and his team, to explore how that gets rolled out and how effective the bus is, the V2G bus, and how it gets integrated into our system. So a great learning experience front and center with the teens that they can learn about. We'll have a roof-mounted solar array that's on there with combined with storage. And then we also have an EPRI project, which is an ag pod, and we'll be partnering with Second Chances, a group that's right down the street from us up in Wilmington, that will help on the agriculture in terms of getting it out into the community and helping the teens understand how something like this can fit into their community. So it's a real great opportunity to, one, meet the needs of the warehouse and the community, but also create an opportunity for teens to see what the future is. And I think Calvin said it, create hopefully some of our future leadership in the energy field coming out of that community based on what they learn and see firsthand at the warehouse there. So really excited about everything that's going on in Wilmington. And our hope is that all three of those projects come to conclusion by year end. I think the ag pod is probably, and the solar panels are probably definitely going to be in. The V2G, I'm still waiting to understand some of the timing on the bus delivery and other things, but our hope is to get all three of those in and done. Love an opportunity in the future to take folks on a tour to see how those things have rolled out and how they've benefited the community as we move forward. Turning to slide 17, as always, like to touch on our gas business and gas performance, and that's highlighted in a very similar way we've outlined each year the key statistics around our gas business. Again, that represents about a little over 135,000 customers and 3,600 miles of lines that they manage on a day-to-day basis for distribution and service lines. And so, you know, we give the customer count. We also give some of the new customer count, almost at that 3,000 new customers. About 80% of that is coming from the propane and oil industry. Customers switching over. Still, natural gas is still a very attractive alternative for them. We've had about 7.3 miles of gas main replacement. You know, we have about 57 miles of cast iron remaining, about 6 miles of bare steel. And if we stay on the pace that we're going in our gas business by 2027, which is ahead of schedule, we should be having all of that replaced. And so we look forward to keeping that pace and keeping our focus on getting the cast iron and bare steel main off our system. As you know, we spend an awful lot of time responding to emergency calls, most of which are often caused by other owners, not us, but we still need to respond. And as you can see, we have some of the highest industry percent response times in our gas business, and we continue to hold that in terms of our odor response. And then, as always, we try to spend an awful lot of time educating and getting the word out and trying to avoid unplanned outages with our customers or dig-ins or other situations like that, but we also do track it. And again, doing well there. Haven't had too many incidents as we went through 2019 around unplanned outages. So overall, good activity and good progress in our gas business. You flip to slide 18. This is a slide you've seen before. Numbers are fairly consistent. We continue to have a relatively consistent level of annual contributions into the community. It's been somewhat stepped up with the activity I mentioned earlier around the tech schools and the small businesses and the work we're doing with United Way. Really recognizing that additional funds quickly dispersed in the community are important. So those numbers in 2020 are getting bolstered by some of those efforts. And then the workforce development plan programs, I talked about those. Those are funds that came out of the merger and are programs that were established to run over 4 years. We still continue to have a very strong presence on board leadership positions. And I think much like the rest of Exelon, we have a culture of giving back into our communities. So both in terms of volunteer hours and taking up leadership positions on boards, we do all we can to prepare our employees to do that. We're strong supporters of Leadership Delaware and have had many graduates from that program who they themselves go on to get engaged and get involved in many projects within the state of Delaware in helping the community move forward. I will say, as we went into 2020 with all the COVID-19 restrictions, I think you'll see our volunteer hours are going to be hurting a little bit next year. We've continued to try to search out and find virtual events and ways that we can continue to get the volunteerism out there. But the reality is many events, many activities have tapered off. I will say that relative to the organizations that we support, whether, and often at times the support went alongside with events that they ran. We work with them to let them know we understand they may not be able to run the events. We still want to be there. We understand their costs aren't going down. If anything, a lot of them are going up. And so we've indicated we'll continue to support them whether they run the events or not. And if there's ways they can cut down some of the overhead costs and put more money toward their mission, we help them do that as well. So on the page, you can see a number of our partners. They've been long-standing partners over the years, and we have good, solid relationships with all of them and many beyond what's on the page here, and often have not only volunteer support, financial support, and board support as well to help make them successful in the communities. Turning to the last slide, as always, like to end up with kind of the year ahead. I'd say the number one focus we have right now is helping the state in its recovery efforts on COVID-19. So whether that's helping our customers kind of help dig themselves out of any situations they may have ended up in as a result of losing work or other situations related to COVID-19, or whether it's the workforce development efforts that we're supporting at the state or anything else the state calls on us to do. We're there, we're ready, we're engaged with the business community, with the chambers, the business roundtables to make sure we're part of the solution and working with the governor every day to help him as he navigates through this pandemic into hopefully back to a normal situation or as close to normal as we get for next year. So that's really has a heavy degree of our focus. We've been working for quite some time with staff and the advocate on distribution system planning. Drew was a key driver early on in getting us to the table and talking more detail about distribution system planning. We're excited about it. And as it comes to fruition, I think it'll help across the board with what we're doing and how we're serving our customers. So going to continue to have a focus on that, make sure we get that done. I've mentioned a good bit about the Wilmington Smart Cities initiative already, but I can assure you it'll have the focus as we go into the balance of the year to make sure all those initiatives keep moving forward and where possible get done by end of year and start adding value to the communities that they're serving. As you know, there's a level of EV activity with the charging and service stations and things that we're putting in, and the team is working with the staff and the advocate as well on that to make sure that the work we're doing around EV continues to move forward. And in addition to what we're already moving forward on, obviously we stay well connected into what's happening in that industry. The fleet electrification is big for Exelon, and Exelon has extremely deep reservoirs of knowledge across the organization around the EV infrastructure and what's going on in that industry, and they bring that all to bear in Delaware as we try to make the right decisions to bring Delaware forward. And then finally, some of the energy efficiency programs, I would say, they're not a substantial amount of energy efficiency programs, and they've been somewhat hampered by the COVID-19 restrictions. But we are still focused on making sure that the energy efficiency programs that we are doing, which is the LED lighting program, the appliance recycling, and then we also have one of the behavior-based programs that's kind of rooted in personalized home energy reports. They've been somewhat delayed as a result of some of the issues around COVID-19, but I can assure you the balance of the year we're going to continue to stay focused and keep those moving forward. So again, I'll end where I started. Very, very happy to be in front of you again this year, talking to you. Wish it was face-to-face, but hopefully next year. And then really, I'm representing the work of a tremendous amount of men and women that have not only stepped up to every storm, but stepped up to COVID-19 and really performed well. I'm happy to be here representing them. And with that, I think I'll turn it back to Calvin, and I believe we'll likely open up for questions.
Marissa, I'll turn it over to you and open to the commission for any questions you may have of the team.
Thank you, Calvin. Chairman Winslow, commissioners, do you have any questions for the team?
Commissioner Gray, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. That was an excellent presentation, folks, and excellent work by Exelon and PHI and DPL. I want to congratulate Calvin Butler for his new role within Exelon. Thanks to Dave, Gary, and Marissa, and your teams. I can honestly say you're role models in the utility sector for your community service and diversity results.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I have two questions. And Gary, maybe I'll guide these toward you. Have you seen any significant changes or trends on load demand as a result of COVID? Think about that. And there's one last question. Do you see any anticipated challenges with the workforce as many families may need to babysit or educate their kids at home?
Yeah, and I think I'm going to, you're never supposed to punt upwards, but I will ask Dave to weigh in a little bit. I don't know if I've drawn any conclusions from the data around the usage relative to COVID, but we may have some PHI-wide data that's allowed us to draw some more longer-term conclusions around the usage. The one thing we have determined is that there's incredibly more important how we manage, when we take lines down. Everybody is running their business out of their home these days, and so in the past, whereas we might have taken for granted, bringing a neighborhood down to do some work during the day, figuring that most people were at work, and it wouldn't interrupt the workflow. We've had to implement a number of programs to make sure we're communicating a good deal with customers that are working from home and how this is going to impact them. So from a usage perspective, really understanding what a remote workforce needs from us, a good deal of learnings about that and how important communications is to those we serve to make sure we keep them up and running. In terms of just load forecasts, I can get back to you if nobody else on the call has that data, but I don't have any specific. Yes.
Yeah. Gary, this is Commissioner Gray. This is Dave. On the load and demand, as you'd expect, we've seen a drop in the commercial usage and an increase in the residential usage. As more and more people are staying at home, for longer periods and not going to work. We will have to get back to you on the specific data for Delmarva, but I want you to know we actually track it every week and actually track very specifically some of the larger customers to see how they're doing, but then also have taken a representative sample of a number of, a couple thousand, let's say commercial customers, a couple thousand residential customers, and are tracking them as a group as well to be able to see if there's trends. I don't think I'll say load and demand will recover until probably sometime in 2021 as I hear about, opening or reopening schedules being paused or delayed. So it's certainly something we're watching closely. And also, again, the impact on customers, load is down because business is down, and that impacts residential as well, to make sure that we're doing the right things and reaching out to customers, around their ability to pay and how we can put in place installment plans, which, we've liberalized to make sure and encourage any customer who has issues to contact us, because we want to work with them. And don't, as a customer, encourage them not to wait until they're at the point where they absolutely need help. But the earlier you contact us, the easier it is to work out. The other thing I'll say on the workforce, very, very conscious of the impacts that whether it's closed schools or childcare have on our employees, and have tried to be very flexible with employees. We have a crisis emergency child care program that we have in place for employees, and we extended that benefit, through the summer to employees. So if they need it, to reach out to find child care because theirs has fallen through, there's a program in place that can quickly jump in and help them. We've also told employees that we would give them 5 weeks notice before we were to bring anybody back into there, so that they would have time. And again, are watching very closely what's going to happen with schools and all as we think about our own reopening plans.
And very good. Well, I wish you the best with those challenges. And again, thanks so much for your time and for the information you've shared with us today.
And Commissioner Gray, just to add on, I'm not sure if the question was a broad one about that same question as it relates to the workforce in Delaware, but I can assure you that Department of Labor, working with Sharon and the Workforce Development Board, are trying to grapple with not only the training programs but the skills and the needs of the business community as we move forward with the workforce development plan. So they are trying to factor and understand, all the way down to the decision that the governor makes relative to how we're going to restart education as we go into the balance of the year. So as we work with the Workforce Development Board, they are trying to take all that into account in what we do as well.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner Karia. May I ask some questions?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I concur with Commissioner Gray that the report is excellent. It's very well balanced with the community approach, with the customer satisfaction and employees. They are all three wheels of your car, of your company, and all the three wheels, tires, are very well balanced and seem to be running very well. So my compliments to all the three of you, Calvin, Dave, and Gary. Wanted to add one more item with my compliments, that last year I think we talked about adding one page at the end of the presentation, the last page, for example, which will have one page of public financial information. For example, capital issue, either is Pepco, or if Delmarva is a separate company registered with SEC, then that's okay. Or with Exelon, then how much is the debt, and what is the bond rating, and what is the EPS, and what is the margin. Like those kind of figures which speaks very strongly or otherwise about the company in Delaware, because we want you to be like well-rounded as you are, like employees. You talk about community contributions, and you talked about vendor and diversities and all those things. We also want you to be financially strong, and we like to be reminded of that with that one page, where because financially strong as you are and you continue to be, it gives us the confidence that you will be here. And you will be here, but you got to tell us that through financial figures, so that we feel happy that our customers in Delaware will have a continuation of service. You have 92% satisfaction rate on outages. Now, that's a wonderful percentage. But we also want you to be continued that. And that comes from cash flow, cash coming in. And those kind of figures, very few, but public information only. So that will round off the fourth tire of on your car. Because without finance, lot of things will not be possible. So we want you to be strong. We want you to continue to be in Delaware for our customers, because continuity is as important as high quality of service as well. So this is my request and an idea or a suggestion. But please also accept my compliments for a very well-run business, for a very well-run report, and very well-run people. Thank you.
Commissioner Correa, it's Dave. I apologize to you. And now that you brought it up, I remember you asking for that last year, and our fault for not having added it. What we will do is we will make sure we send in to you and all the commissioners a one-page or summary like you're asking for with public information. And then we'll make sure next year that we include it in as well. And also, Commissioner Gray, one high-level stat that found that overall there's been a 3.5% drop in sales from last year if you look just March through July. But we'll follow up with more detail than that, but that's kind of a high-level number.
Thank you, Dave.
Commissioner Conaway or Commissioner Drexler, do you have any questions?
Yes, I do. This is Commissioner Drexler, and I'm directing my question to Jerry Stockbridge. And you mentioned in your presentation, I should start by saying that I, too, commend you all on a very successful 2019 and on your approach to 2020, a myriad challenges and how you are approaching both the protection of the employees as well as the safety and providing reliable energy to all of our Delmarva clients as well. My question is regarding the gas main replacement and the remaining 57 miles of cast iron and bare steel. And I just wonder if you could tell me where those are located. Are they primarily in the city of Wilmington?
Yeah, so I don't know about the bare steel, and historically you'll find most of the cast iron and bare steel will be in the older parts of our system. So by its nature, you would expect a good deal of that to be in Wilmington. What we can do is we have a lot of data on it. I don't have it sitting in front of me, but we can get you a quick summary of kind of the remaining 57 miles of cast iron. Where is it in terms of who's going to be putting up with the the road work when we do it. And again, I would say the most of that is in Wilmington, but also the bare steel main. We can try to give you some type of a breakdown. I don't know, maybe we can do it by zip or something like that. But just to give you an idea where it exists, because I know we track it quite a bit. So
I'd like to follow that. I've recently been appointed to the gas committee for NARUC, and so I will be following that, and I'd like to see that information if possible.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we'll get a quick call with Brian Clark, our head of our gas group, and yourself, and that way we not only can tell you where that is, but any other questions you may have related to the topic about how we're doing on eventually replacing all of this.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah,
and thanks again for your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Conaway?
I just would like to thank the company for their positive information and ask, please, that you take back our thank you to all of your employees. I know that this has been an extremely difficult situation, and I have heard nothing but good. So please pass that on to the employees.
Thank you so much.
Drew Slater, do you have a question or questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. I just have a question or a comment. We have seen several customers who have experienced gas meter changes where the company has gone out and gone behind a company's property or behind a house, and the customers or consumers are not notified ahead of time. And so, you know, I'm just asking on a safety perspective, and I know I've brought this up before, that Delmarva please start telling customers that you're coming. Give them at least the day that you're coming or a time frame, but to show up and then, you know, proceed past a privacy fence to get to your meter, I'm very concerned that that's going to lead to some harm for your customers for your customers or for your employees. And so I ask that you please let your customers know and change your policy so that they actually know in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Drew.
Mr. Butler, Mr. Velasquez, and Mr. Stockton, I've been a commissioner for 16 years almost, and this is the best and most positive state of the company presentation I've heard. And I think it was highly appropriate to thank all of the men and women who work for Delmarva, PHI, and Exelon. But I would also say that a great deal of credit's got to go to management, because this azimuth you have and direction that you're taking to make things better is driven by management. So, Mr. Butler, I just want to say that management should be praised as well. And if there are no further questions, I guess we will say a final thank you, and we'll look forward to next year's report with the financial information. Hopefully all of the commissioners will be here. And so, okay, thank you, Marissa.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, commissioners.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Take care.
For those of you who are still with us, just be mindful and look and make sure that you have your telephones on mute while you're not speaking. We have next the consent agenda. Do we have anybody who wants to take a matter off the consent agenda? Hearing none, can we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second the motion.
Is there any discussion on the motion to approve the consent agenda? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
The motion carries. The next matter we're going to do is the hearing, which is on page, I guess it's page 5, in the matter of the petition of the Public Service Commission staff and Delaware Division of the Public Advocate to establish a regulation for distribution system and investment plans for Delaware electric and natural gas utilities. And I would just say to everyone concerned that we've read the documents and that you can make some brief comments would be appreciated. Mr. Jordan from DP&L.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, Chairman Winslow and Commissioners, and may it please the Commission. My name is Brian Jordan, and I am appearing before you virtually today on behalf of Delmarva Power and Light. Thank you for the opportunity to just briefly comment on our comment. But before that, I did want to recognize Mr. Walsh from staff, Ms. Iori, and Mr. Slater from the Division of the Public Advocate, who, along with Delmarva, engaged in a good faith effort to negotiate towards unanimity on the proposed regulation. And Delmarva's comment addresses a single point where consensus was not reached. That point is found in Section 4.0, which is titled Reliability and Quality Performance Benchmarks. Now, during negotiations, Delmarva acceded to using AOR and AOD as benchmarks during the 3-year test period required by Section 4.2. AOR refers to an annual outage rate. AOD refers to an annual outage duration. These metrics, AOR and AOD, which do not measure safety or environmental factors, are familiar in the electrical service industry, but they are novel to the natural gas service industry in Delaware, and in fact, are not metrics used in the natural gas service industry elsewhere. Delmarva's comment specifically addresses the language in section 4.3 that says, a gas distribution company, such as Delmarva, quote, shall establish AOR and AOD benchmarks, end quote, at the end of the 3-year reporting period. What Delmarva proposes in its comment is replacing the word shall with may. The word shall is mandatory. It requires the commission to set benchmarks at the end of the reporting period. On the other hand, may is permissive. It gives the commission discretion to decide whether the quality and the quantity of the data produced by these novel metrics is sufficient to inform the commission's decision. If the data is sufficient, the commission can establish benchmarks. But if the data is insufficient, the commission, under Delmarva's proposal, can postpone establishing those benchmarks until it has the information that it feels it needs or is sufficient to inform its decision. And I want to underscore that Delmarva's proposed language does not change a GDC's obligation under Section 8.0 of the proposed regulation to continue to submit annual reliability performance reports. Ultimately, the difference between the proposed regulation and Delmarva's comment is that replacing shall with may provides the commission with maximum discretion without being restrictive. And to wrap it up by way of analogy, the way I would analogize this, Your Honors, it's like going out to dinner and making a decision on what you're going to eat before you go out, or making a decision after you read the menu and get a chance to hear the specials. It's our position that making that decision after reading the menu and hearing the specials is the wiser one and gives the commission the most discretion available to it. Thank you, Your Honors.
Thank you, Mr. Jordan. Ms. Iori.
Thank you, Chairman Winslow and Commissioners. Regina Iori, Deputy Attorney General, on behalf of the Public Advocate. Your Honors, that was a very interesting analogy, but here's the thing. The Commission always has discretion. In every order that you issue, including this order, should you issue it, the final paragraph contains the language, the Commission retains the jurisdiction and authority to enter such further orders as may be deemed necessary or appropriate. Now, the reason that we believe the language shall is appropriate is because it is consistent with similar provisions in the distribution planning regulations for electric utilities that the Commission approved earlier this year. I do take a little issue with Delmarva's statement that the AOR and AOD are not familiar terms in the gas industry. While certainly gas industry distribution planning isn't as far along as it is on the electric side, the fact is that there are several utilities, gas utilities in the United States that are engaging in distribution system planning and using these metrics to measure. So I would simply say, you just heard Mr. Stockbridge tell you that you can't take your eye off of reliability, and specifically with respect to distribution planning, that they're excited about it and want to make sure that we get that done. And Mr. Butler also said that I suppose meaning Exelon overall, are moving to set safety standards and benchmarks. These aren't safety standards and benchmarks, they're reliability standards and benchmarks. And frankly, that's what consumers care about. So the DPA would respectfully request that the commission approve as final the proposed regulations that were published per the commission's order in May without any changes to them. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Iori. Mr. Walsh?
Thank you, Chairman Winslow. Tom Walsh on behalf of staff. I will repeat myself from the last hearing in saying that I won't be redundant to what the DPA presented. We support the order as presented. The word shall is consistent with the electric, and that is an important part of the benchmarks and the consistency, and staff will support the order as submitted. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Commissioners, do you have any questions of the parties?
This is Commissioner Gray, Mr. Chair. So I'm listening to the comments from Delmarva and from the public advocate, and I think I've heard two different versions, that AOR and AOD are not used and that they are used. So this presents for me a little bit of a conflict to make an informed decision. But I would say, if I look back at the presentation Delmarva just presented, there is a slide number 17 that says providing safe, reliable, and affordable natural gas service. And I was looking at some of the metrics that are represented here. So I would ask the public advocate, are these reliability metrics as well? Like the number of emergency calls, gas odor on time call response, gas customer unplanned outages per 1,000 customers.
I believe that unplanned outages are. I do not believe that calls for gas smells are. And but outages, definitely, that's part of reliability. And if they're already doing that, then complying with these metrics shouldn't be a problem.
Okay,
and I would also note that Chesapeake does not have any issue with the metrics as proposed and supported the proposed regulations that were published.
Okay, and so the shall in this case is governing the actions we anticipate from Delmarva, which means that they must establish these metrics for later consideration. Am I correct?
Correct.
Okay, I don't sense that I have a problem with shall in that context, and so therefore no further comments, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Any other commissioners have any other questions?
Chairman Winslow, I'm sorry to interrupt. Tom Walsh. Because I had originally drafted this order and we had some procedural anomalies with this, I misspoke in suggesting that I support the order. Of course, this is the final hearing, and we will have an order ready for the next hearing. So I just wanted to make sure that I corrected myself on that, and I apologize.
Mr. Walsh, since you spoke up, thank you for doing that. The differences between may and shall, and the company seems to be arguing that we should, those of you out there, make sure you have your phones on mute, please. It seems to me that an argument could be made that the word shall could be implemented at a future date, as Ms. Iori points out, have the right to change it from may to shall. And that wouldn't, what sort of upheaval would that bring, Ms. Iori?
Well, Your Honor, under that, we'd have to actually come back and have the commission enter an order requiring Delmarva to do this.
And the same if, okay, I agree with that, obviously. Does any commissioner want to make a motion?
What is our decision on this matter, Mr. Chair, please?
I guess we're deciding whether it's going to be may or shall is the only issue I've heard.
Actually, if I...
Mr. Walsh? Mr. Walsh?
Yes, and that is correct. This is the final hearing. The last and only comment received was Delmarva's, and as Mr. Jordan articulated, it is concerning only that may versus shall in section 4.3. So the commission, we are asking for determination on shall as it is in now versus the may, which is in Delmarva's comments.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh.
So that we can...
Mr. Gray?
Mr. Chair, in view of my support of the position of public advocate and staff, I make the motion that the language will remain shall, not may.
Is there a second?
I second the motion.
Commissioner Drexler second the motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Was there anybody who abstained or voted no? Motion carries. Thank you, everyone. Is there anyone, we're going to do some more work, obviously, but since we're here at the public comment session, is there anybody on the telephone who wishes to make any public comment? And while we're here also, the director's comments. We'll do the director's comments so we can, when we get finished with Reg 56, we can adjourn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. The only comment I have is there's a public comment session in PSC docket number 20-0149. Delmarva Power's increase in electric base rates on Tuesday, August 4th, 2020, 6 p.m. It is going to be via teleconference only, and it's being hosted from this building. And of course, the next commission meeting is on August 19th, 2020. That's all I have, Commissioners.
Thank you, Dr. Barua. On the regular agenda, we have number 1 in the matter of the investigation into misleading solicitation practices of certain telemarketers on behalf of electric suppliers. Mr. O'Brien.
Thank you, Chair Winslow and Commissioners. Bill O'Brien, Deputy Attorney General, on behalf of Commission staff. What you have before you is a joint petition from staff and the Division of the Public Advocate asking the Commission to open a formal investigation into certain complaints made by residential electric service customers alleging they have received misleading telemarketing calls from third-party electric suppliers or their agents. As stated in the joint petition, these complaints have certain common themes. The call comes in with the words Delmarva Power displayed on the caller ID display. However, once on the call, it eventually becomes apparent that the caller is not affiliated with Delmarva Power, and yet they still, at times, will not readily disclose on whose behalf they are calling. The Commission supplier rules, of course, prohibit these types of misleading solicitation practices. You also have in front of you proposed order number 9632, which would grant the joint petition, which calls on staff and DPA to conduct the investigation and then report back to the Commission. The proposed order also directs the certified electric suppliers to cooperate in the investigation, and it provides a public notice of the investigation for publication. So staff would request that the Commission grant the joint petition and adopt proposed order number 9632. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. O'Brien. Ms. Iori?
Thank you, Chairman Winslow and Commissioners. I apologize if it's a little loud on my end here. Our lawn people just showed up. But I would like to thank staff for drafting the petition. Mr. O'Brien did a great job, and I appreciate his having taken the laboring oar on this. I have nothing to add to his description of what prompted the petition, and the DPA would respectfully request the commission to enter proposed order number 9632. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Iori. Is there anyone else here from Delmarva Power and Light or RISA or any other third party that wishes to make any comments?
Chair Winslow, this is Dawn Crompton on behalf of Delmarva. I would just like to echo Ms. Iori's comments and thanking both her and Mr. O'Brien for preparing this petition. And we agree that this is an important issue, and we are thankful to both staff and DPA for preparing this petition.
Thank you, Ms. Crompton. Commissioners, do you have any questions?
I would move that we adopt proposed order number 9632 as presented.
I second.
Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye?
Aye.
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 Is there another aye left out there? Anybody in opposition? Any abstentions? The motion carries. Number 2 is in the matter of the formal complaint of the Delaware Association of Alternative Energy Providers against Chesapeake Utilities Corporation, the Delaware Division of the Public Advocate, and the Delaware Public Service Commission staff. There was a complaint filed, and we have Chesapeake and Chesapeake's motion to dismiss, and also a joint application by the Public Advocate and the staff of the Public Service Commission to dismiss the complaints. So what we're going to do is we're going to hear from Chesapeake on their motion to dismiss, and then we're going to hear, is the Public Advocate and staff going to make argument, or is just one member going to make argument on behalf of both?
Mr. Chairman, James Geddes, we're going to split the argument, but we will not be repetitive.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. And then we'll hear, obviously, from DAEEP with respect to their answer to the arguments made on the dismissal. So Chesapeake, we have, Brian Quinn, I think, out there.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. It's Brian Quinn here on behalf of Chesapeake. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir, very well. Thank you for speaking up.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. DAPE's complaint here requests relief related entirely to a settlement agreement reached in another case that this commission approved and found to be in the public interest over a month ago. As you know, Order 9594 approved Chesapeake's request for certain regulatory accounting treatment and a evaluation methodology related to its acquisition of propane systems from its affiliate. DAPE filed this complaint challenging the settlement agreement on June 10th. 7 days later, the Commission issued its order approving the settlement agreement. Accordingly, Chesapeake filed a motion to dismiss on the following grounds. The complaint's moot, the association lacks standing to challenge an order in a case in which it was not a party, and the complaint violates a 2017 Superior Court order. I know you've read the papers, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, so I'll briefly address why the Commission should dismiss the complaint and why DAPE's arguments in response to the motion to dismiss are without merit. And then lastly, I'd like to briefly discuss the topic of the Commission's jurisdiction to consider Chesapeake's application in this prior CGS docket and explain why the Commission maintained the jurisdiction to issue Order 9594. On the question of mootness, I don't want to make this any more complicated than necessary. In the complaint, DAPE asks you to reject a settlement agreement that you've already approved and found to be in the public interest. 7 days after DAPE filed the complaint, the Commission issued its approval order. Order number 9594 is a final order of the Commission and therefore represents the last word of the Commission as it relates to the settlement agreement. Also, the time for filing any judicial appeal of the order has expired. The complaint asks you to reopen and reconsider a decision you've already made. Order 9594 has rendered the complaint moot. DAPE argues that the issue of the Commission's jurisdiction over the settlement was not raised by the parties or discussed in docket number 190529. However, this argument is conclusory, incorrect, and ignores the facts. Chesapeake's most recent CGS acquisition proposal is materially and significantly different from the proposal the Commission rejected in December 2018. The 2018 application sought to allow Chesapeake to acquire and bring into its rate base over 40 CGS systems all at once, and then convert those systems over a period of years. As we all are aware, the Commission dismissed this proposal as beyond its statutory authority. However, Chesapeake's most recent application in 19-0529 proposed to acquire its affiliate systems one at a time while simultaneously converting those systems to gas. Chesapeake's application in 19-0529 explained the critical differences between the company's one-at-a-time proposal and its 2018 application. Of course, the same attorneys represented Chesapeake, DPA, and staff in both cases, and these parties certainly understood the difference between the 2018 application and the application filed in 2019. We should also remember that DPA and staff jointly moved to dismiss Chesapeake's 2018 CGS application on jurisdictional grounds. DAPE's argument requires us to believe that these same DPA and staff lawyers suddenly became ignorant of the limits of the Commission's jurisdiction just 8 months later. To be clear, Chesapeake understood the reasons the Commission rejected its 2018 CGS application and revised its most recent proposal accordingly in order to address any jurisdictional concerns. As is evident in the complaint and their opposition memo, the association apparently does not fully understand Chesapeake's 2019 application or the differences in the conversion process proposed therein. However, it's not our job to explain our proposal to an association of unregulated competitors who are not even parties in the case. In addition, the Commission's jurisdiction is not required to be specifically challenged and decided in every application filed by a public utility. Nevertheless, and I think this is interesting, DAPE themselves raised the issue of the Commission's jurisdiction in public comments it filed on June 12th, 5 days prior to the June 17th evidentiary hearing in which the Commission approved the settlement agreement. The assertion that no party raised the issue of the Commission's jurisdiction ignores reality and is contradicted by the application filed in the case and the circumstances of that case. Moreover, DAPE's argument presumes the hearing examiner and the Commission were ignorant of the extent of their jurisdiction and failed to understand what they were doing when they approved the settlement agreement. Such a presumption is unreasonable. Next issue I'd like to discuss is the fact that DAPE was not a party to the 2019 CGS case and they lacked standing to challenge Order 9594. Here, their complaint is nothing more than a collateral attack of a final order of the Commission in a case in which DAPE did not participate. This Commission has the authority to manage how it conducts its business, including the adoption of Commission's rules of practice and procedure and setting of a procedural schedule. These rules and the procedural schedule control the timing and methods for participation in Commission cases by both parties and members of the public. Without structural rules, the process of creating a formal record in a case would devolve into an unmanageable mess. The evidence here shows that DAPE was aware of Chesapeake's CGS application very soon after it was filed. Instead of following the Commission's rules and the procedural schedule in Docket 190529, DAPE chose to wait months before filing the complaint just 7 days before the Commission's evidentiary hearing on the settlement agreement. Throughout the process here, DAPE has disregarded the Commission's rules and the procedural schedule in docket number 190529. In response, they've offered page after page of excuses in an attempt to justify their inaction. As we explained in our reply brief, all of DAPE's excuses are without merit. Delaware law and the Commission's regulations define the parameters of a final order. Here, the Commission issued a final order approving the settlement agreement over a month ago. All public utilities, and more importantly, utility customers, need to be able to rely on the finality of Commission orders. DAPE's 11th hour complaint strikes at the heart of the administrative process and the adversarial system the Commission has followed for decades. If the relief in DAPE's complaint is granted, what's to stop them from filing another complaint challenging a Commission order from 2, 3, 5, or 10 years ago? When does it stop? DAPE was not a party to docket 190529, and they have no standing to file a complaint seeking to overturn the final order in that case. I'll move on very quickly. Mr. Chairman, thank you for your time. I want to discuss very briefly the Superior Court order from 2017. I understand all the commissioners are very familiar with it. That's the 2017 order that Judge Witham ruled that the Commission should not have allowed DAPE to intervene in Chesapeake's last rate case. We've covered the arguments in our brief. I won't repeat them here. Let me just say that it's extremely rare to find a court decision directly on point concerning an issue, and even more rare when that case involves the same issue and the same parties. We believe the Superior Court bars the complaint under the doctrine of collateral estoppel or issue preclusion. Moreover, the Superior Court order should have precedential effect under the doctrine of stare decisis, even though the order is an unreported decision. However, even if you choose not to decide this question, or if you disagree that the Commission is formally bound by the Superior Court order, Chesapeake respectfully suggests that you follow its teachings. In the 2017 order, the judge outlined the extent of the Commission's jurisdiction to consider the competitive interests of DAPE. Rarely does a state agency have the benefit of such an order involving the same issue and the same party. The court held that the Commission exceeded its statutory authority because it may not consider the competitive interest of unregulated competitors. In addition, the court cited favorably to examples of other state commission orders that held that propane associations and other unregulated competitors of utilities lack standing to file complaints seeking to protect their competitive interests. The reasoning is clear. Public utility commissions were not created to police the competition between utility and unregulated competitors. Rather, this commission was created to balance the interest of utilities on the one hand and utility customers on the other. Unregulated competitors like DAPE should not be permitted to file complaints masquerading as legitimately interested consumers. Even if you decide not to be bound formally by the Superior Court order, you should recognize its importance and follow it. Very briefly, Mr. Chairman, on the Commission's jurisdiction to issue the order in the 2019 CGS case, and I'll end here. DAPE argues that the Commission lacked the statutory authority to issue Order 9594 because that order seeks to regulate the propane business and rates charged to propane customers. That's a misunderstanding and mischaracterization of Order 9594. In approving the settlement agreement, the Commission did not assert regulatory authority over the rates that private, unregulated propane companies may charge to the public. Rather, the Commission set the rates appropriately charged by a gas company to natural gas customers who voluntarily choose to convert from propane when their distribution systems are converted to natural gas. All propane customers will have the informed choice to convert or choose not to. Propane customers who choose not to convert to natural gas are free to choose their propane provider. As explained in the application, the supporting testimony, and our motion to dismiss, the propane customers will remain customers of the propane company until Chesapeake turns the natural gas service on at their homes. Moreover, Chesapeake will not seek to add the former Sharp delivery infrastructure to its rate case until the company files a subsequent rate case. The Commission acted within its jurisdiction over the rates charged by Chesapeake when it approved the settlement agreement. And I'll conclude there, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you, Mr. Quinn, very much. Ms. Iori.
Thank you, Chairman Winslow and Commissioners.
Is that the lawn mowing service in the background?
Me. No, that is not me. I don't know who that is, but boy, it would be nice if they could put it on mute.
You know, if there's somebody out there that has a lot of noise on the system, please, everybody, check their telephones or their devices to make sure you have it on mute.
That's much better. Again, good afternoon, Chairman Winslow and Commissioners. This is Regina Iori, Deputy Attorney General, on behalf of the Delaware Division of the Public Advocate. Your Honor, yesterday, the DAAEP filed a declaration. Chesapeake staff and the DPA have jointly filed a letter responding to that declaration. I don't know whether the commissioners want me to address that or not.
You're talking about your letter of today's date?
From this morning. If you want me to address it, I will. If not, I will just go directly into my argument on the merits.
Well, let's go to the argument on the merits, please.
Okay, thank you. I will try not to repeat anything that Mr. Quinn has said or that Mr. Geddes will say. On mootness, we adopt Chesapeake's arguments and our reply brief and our opening brief, obviously, on those that we made in our motion. But I want to highlight the fact, and it is a fact, that all of the relief that DAAEP's complaint seeks has either already been granted or has been rejected by this commission as a result of its unanimous decision to approve the settlement in docket number 19-0529 on June 17th. Now, if the commission should find that the complaint has been mooted by your decision in that docket, you don't have to reach any of the other arguments on standing or on contract. On standing, Mr. Geddes will discuss why DAAEP doesn't have organizational standing. I just want to highlight one point regarding DAAEP's arguments about the effect of the Superior Court's decision in the Chesapeake case. And commissioners, despite DAAEP's arguments to the contrary, the DPA believes that that case is binding on this commission for the reasons that the DPA discussed in our opening brief and which you heard from Mr. Quinn earlier. Next, I admit to being completely flummoxed by DAAEP's contention that this commission lacked jurisdiction over docket number 19-0529. It's clear that this commission does have jurisdiction over Chesapeake and what it can or cannot include in its rate base or operating expenses. Mr. Geddes will address this argument in greater detail, but I just wanted to make a few observations about it. DAAEP says that the commission doesn't have jurisdiction over Chesapeake's application in docket 19-0529, but it wants the commission to undo what it did in June, which would mean it has jurisdiction to undo what it did, so that DAAEP can participate as a party in docket number 19-0529, over which, according to DAAEP, the commission has no jurisdiction, so that it can reject Chesapeake's application and the settlement agreement, over which DAAEP argues it has no jurisdiction. So are you confused yet? Because I am. The relief it seeks is completely inconsistent with its jurisdictional argument. And it's also completely inconsistent with the position that DAAEP took in docket 07-186. It didn't argue in that docket that the commission didn't have jurisdiction over Chesapeake's application when Chesapeake sought commission approval to do something similar with CGS's. Like staff in the DPA, it contested that proposal on its merits. But under DAAEP's current argument, the commission would not have had jurisdiction over that request from Chesapeake, and so the commission would not have had jurisdiction to approve the settlement in that case on which DAAEP now so heavily relies. DAAEP can't have it both ways. The commission can't lack jurisdiction for purposes of its decision in docket 19-0529, but have jurisdiction for purposes of its decision in docket 07-186, and have jurisdiction for purposes of persuading this commission to grant it relief it could only ask for as a party. Finally, I'll just hit a couple of DAAEP's contract arguments, which are simply wrong. In the settlement in docket 07-186, the parties reserved the right to take conflicting positions in future cases, and that's what happened in docket number 19-0529. If DAAEP believed it had a contractual right to participate in docket 19-0529, it should have moved to intervene in that docket, but it didn't. Even though it knew what the schedule in that case was, and even though it knew more than a month before the settlement hearing that there was a settlement, and in fact had a copy of that settlement, it did nothing for 3 weeks. Now, if Mr. Slater were making this argument, he would tell you how many days, hours, and minutes that was. I'm not going to do that, though. Only a week before the settlement hearing, it filed this complaint. Its argument that the settlement in 07-186 gave it a contractual right to bring the complaint didn't also give it the right to wait until a week before the commission was going to conduct the settlement hearing in docket 19-0529 to raise its claim. Now, I don't make this allegation lightly, but given the uncontroverted facts about what DAAEP knew and when it knew it, its last-minute foray into docket 19-0529 smacks of bad faith. DAAEP's arguments that the parties to the docket 07-186 settlement agreement are stopped from taking different positions in docket 19-0529 are likewise meritless. We pointed out in our reply brief that equitable estoppel does not apply when consideration has been given, and here consideration was given. Basically, DAAEP is claiming some alleged contractual right was violated. And as the Delaware Supreme Court said, quote, characterizing this as an equitable estoppel suit sidesteps the critical fact that the parties disagree about the scope of a contractual right, end quote. We also pointed out that the Delaware Supreme Court has expressly declined to adopt regulatory estoppel, but even if it had, that concept only applies in the context of insurance contracts. As for DAAEP's waiver argument, we pointed out that waiver requires the knowing and voluntary relinquishment of a known right, and that the DPA could not have known that in 2008, that in 2017, a court would determine that DAAEP had no right to be a party to cases involving a regulated public utility. But the DPA knew that in 2019, and had DAAEP petitioned the commission to intervene, the DPA would have opposed that petition and would not have waived its right to object. Finally, fairness to the parties and ratepayers warrants dismissal of DAAEP's complaint. DAAEP asked this commission for a do-over of docket 19-0529 with it as a party in this case, despite the fact that it did not even move a muscle to try to intervene timely or to make its claims to the Commission timely. Ratepayers should not be burdened with the cost of a do-over just because DAAEP thought it would be strategically more beneficial for it to wait until the settlement hearing was only a week away. Thank you for your consideration, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much, Ms. Iori. Mr. Geddes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission. Sometimes it's good to go last, since some of your arguments are taken by your colleagues. I was supposed to address subject matter jurisdiction, but Mr. Quinn took my first argument, Ms. Iori took my second. The third argument I would raise briefly with you is having asserted jurisdiction over this matter as a result of approving the settlement and entering Order 9594. It is for a higher tribunal to decide whether that exercise of authority is correct or not this Commission. As in the Eastern Shore litigation that took place in 1993 and 1994, of which Ms. Iori and myself were involved in, I went up to the Supreme Court involving the question of this Commission's jurisdiction over interstate pipeline. The Delaware Supreme Court made the final determination on the question of the Commission's authority to regulate as a public utility an interstate pipeline. And it is not for this Commission itself that having already asserted authority to make that final determination, as DAAEP seems to suggest in its papers. The issue that I'm supposed to address is organizational standing. No one's addressed that one yet, but I will try to be brief. As stated in staff's reply brief, pages 7 through 14, an organization like DAAEP can only sue on behalf of its members if it meets certain standing requirements, none of which are met here. First, DAAEP's organizational purpose of promoting propane as an alternative energy source is not closely related to or germane with its goal of derailing the settlement in this matter, which establishes rates for customers of a regulated energy competitor. There must be some nexus between the organization's purpose and the interest to be protected by the lawsuit in order for DAAEP to have organizational standing. Here, there is no such nexus. Second, the required participation of DAAEP's members in the proceeding defeats the need of the association to represent them. DAAEP seeks to have its members heard on the issues of state energy policy. Thus, because members' participation would be necessary to further advance that litigation goal of DAAEP as a state in the complaint, it fails the second prong of the association organization standing test. Finally, the third part of the test requires some of the DAAEP members to have suffered some type of injury that is concrete and not abstract. There is no allegation of any particularized injury in the DAAEP's complaint that can satisfy this requirement for organizational standing, nor how the Commission's actions regarding a regulated entity affects the economic interests of DAAEP and its individual members. Therefore, for these reasons alone, the complaint should be dismissed, since DAAEP does not have organizational standing to bring its claims. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Geddes. Mr. Murphy?
Yes,
No, I apologize. I apologize. Do we have, I guess Tom Walsh is our counsel for this issue. Good. Mr. Murphy, it's your turn.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. Can you hear me just fine?
Yes, sir, we can.
Thank you. So, just for the record, particularly for the court reporter, I represent the Delaware Association of Alternative Energy Providers, which has been referred to as DAAEP or DAPE. So for purposes of the record, when was referring to date, he meant, he was saying DAAE. In the course of my remarks, I will try to refer to my client as the association. The first point I would like to make is that a complaint is only for a short and plain statement of the claims being made. And secondly, if there is a deficiency in the complaint, the party that filed the complaint should be granted leave to amend the complaint. If there is a question of standing, then the party should be given leave to amend the complaint or make whatever supplemental record ought to be allowed to set forth facts related to standing. Complaints are not dismissed unless there is no prospect of stating a claim. Next, I would like to address the declaration that we submitted yesterday with respect to Brian Reynolds. The letter submitted by the respondents this morning concedes that if they made a new argument in their reply papers, that the declaration of Mr. Reynolds should be accepted. That is the case here. The staff and the public advocate filed a joint opening motion. They did not cite or argue the standards in the Delaware Supreme Court case, Oceanport Industries v. Wilmington Stevedores, a 1994 case. Nor did they cite to or argue the U.S. Supreme Court case on standing, Hunt versus Washington State, a 1977 case. The principal standing argument in the staff's reply paper that the public advocate joined in cites the Oceanport and Hunt cases for the first time and makes an extensive argument at pages 7 to 14 based entirely on those two cases, which were never cited before. Nor were they discussed in any way by the staff or the public advocate in their opening papers. If the staff and the public advocate had cited those cases and made the arguments that they made in their reply papers, the association then would have had the opportunity to address them and consider to file an affidavit of Mr. Reynolds with our answering papers. Instead, those cases were not cited and only set forth in a reply filed last week. Therefore, we submit that the association was well within its rights to submit the affidavit of Mr. Reynolds, and it should be accepted. I do note, as an aside, that the staff and the public advocate chose to file a joint motion. So they filed one paper in opposition to our complaint. Consequently, we filed one paper in opposition to theirs. Yet, they took the liberty to file separate replies, which we submit should not have been done, and further, to add new arguments that could have been made in the opening were not. On the letter submitted today, we have one additional point, and then I'll move on to the gist of my argument. They make a new argument in their letter today that the members of the association have nothing to complain about because if they choose not to sell one of their propane systems to Chesapeake, then they cannot be harmed. It's entirely up to them whether they sell. Now, if this argument had been made in the opening papers of the staff and the public advocate, as they should have been, we could have addressed that also in our answering papers. I will tell the commission that we would be prepared to address that in a substantive way. But at this point, I can tell you that the contracts with the customers for those propane systems, they don't apply in perpetuity. And the customers are not forever bound. And that leaves the customers open to make a conversion with Chesapeake. So we are at risk. We are threatened with injury. I want to now move on to the main points of our argument. First, I want to address the Delaware public policy on the promotion of renewable energy such as solar and wind over fossil fuel natural gas. Public policy is based in part on the attitudes of Delaware's citizens. What does the public think? It's my understanding that the Commission has received more than 50 letters supporting the Association's complaint in this docket. How frequently, one might ask, does the Commission receive more than 50 letters supporting a party's position in a docket? Public attitudes have changed tremendously since July of 2014. And I use that date because it is the date of Senate Joint Resolution number 7, relied upon by the respondents and the hearing examiner in his report. The fact that attitudes towards renewable energy have changed tremendously is true as alleged in our complaint and supported in our complaint by references. It's true not only for individuals, but also for businesses. Each year, more and more companies are setting the goal of 100% reliance on renewable energy, and they are seeking to achieve that goal over the next 10 to 15 years. This trend started more than 10 years ago for businesses and citizens in the United States, and the movement has snowballed. I note that the president of the Delaware Electrical Vehicle Association submitted a letter in support of our complaint. One need only look back to 2014 and the status of Tesla Motors as compared to today. In years past, analysts predicted that Tesla would become a bankrupt company, that electric vehicles would never catch on. Today, Tesla has more value than the top 4 other auto manufacturers in the country. Companies today are looking for states and locations that can provide renewable energy, solar, wind, geothermal, not fossil fuels. How do we determine public policy and public attitudes? I've mentioned the letters that were submitted in support of our complaint, but there are other ways. A second way is to look at the legislation passed by the General Assembly and signed by the governor. The association's complaint cites multiple provisions of the Delaware Code that establish Delaware's commitment to renewable energy sources as opposed to fossil fuels. The first is Title VII of the Delaware Code, Section 6043, which became law on June 30, 2008. According to Section 6043, its statement of policy, there is a growing scientific consensus that the increased anthropogenic emission of greenhouse gases are enhancing the natural greenhouse effect and causing changes in Earth's climate. Second, climate change poses serious potential risks to human health and terrestrial and aquatic ecosystems globally, regionally, and in the state. Third, CO2 is an air contaminant as defined in the Delaware Code, 7 Del C 6002. Fourth, it is in the interest of the state to protect human health and terrestrial and aquatic ecosystems by taking actions to stabilize and to limit CO2 contributions from the state. Next, Title 26, Chapter 15, which became law on July 29, 2009. There, the General Assembly said that it finds and declares that cost-effective energy efficiency shall be considered as an energy supply source before any increase or expansion of traditional energy supplies. Next, energy efficiency is among the least expensive ways to meet the growing energy demands of the state. Next, providing affordable, reliable, and clean energy for all consumers in Delaware is in the public interest and will yield social, economic, and welfare benefits for generations to come. Next, the benefits of a strong focus on cost-effective energy efficiency accrue to the public at large, and all electric and natural gas suppliers and consumers in Delaware share an obligation to develop a minimum level of those resources in the energy supply portfolio of the state. Next, the benefits of cost-effective energy efficiency include lowered consumer spending on energy, improved regional and local air quality, improved public health, increased electric supply diversity, increased protection against price volatility and supply disruption, improved transmission and distribution performance, and new economic development opportunities. The next statute we cited on public policy is in Title 26, the Public Utilities section of the Delaware Code, and I'm specifically speaking about Section 351. And the Commission is familiar with that statute. It's the Renewable Energy Portfolio Standards Act. That act states, the General Assembly finds and declares that the benefits of electricity from renewable energy resources accrue to the public at large, and that electric suppliers and consumers share an obligation to develop a minimum level of these resources in the electricity supply portfolio of the state. These benefits include improved regional and local air quality, improved public health, increased electric supply diversity, increased protection against volatility and supply disruptions, improved transmission and distribution performance, and new economic development opportunities. It goes on to state that the purpose and intent of the General Assembly in enacting the Renewable Energy Portfolio Standards Act is to establish a market for electricity from these resources in Delaware and to lower the cost to consumers of electricity from these resources. Lastly, on the legislation side, the complaint references and cites 77 Delaware laws, Chapter 453, which was signed by the governor on July 28, 2010. It codified changes to Title 26 of the Delaware Code, Chapter 10, especially Section 1001, which promoted the development of community-owned renewable generation facilities. On a related note, but not an actual Delaware law, the Delaware State Senate this year introduced Senate Bill 250 to further promote the development of community-based renewable energy systems instead of fossil fuels for those communities. None of the Delaware laws that were cited in our complaint were ever discussed by the parties or referenced or cited in the hearing examiner's report. Instead, when it came to determining public policy as established by the General Assembly, and again, I repeat that all of the statutes that I cited are part of the Delaware Code and have been for 10 years or more. Instead, the hearing examiner, relying upon Chesapeake, cited Senate Joint Resolution 7, which was signed by the previous governor on July 31, 2014, 6 years ago. As a matter of law, a resolution is a very limited legislative act. I provided the commission with the General Assembly Bill Drafting Manual. And this is a matter of law. A resolution is effective only during the existence of the General Assembly which promulgates it. The resolution was passed by the 147th General Assembly, which ended on Election Day in November 2014. The resolution should not have been given any force or effect after November 4, 2014, which was the election day that year, I said. The parties in Docket 190529 and the hearing examiner relied upon a resolution, not a law, whose effectiveness expired in November 2014 as allegedly representing the public policy of Delaware. They ignored the multiple laws enacted by Delaware that established a completely contrary public policy. In doing so, they failed to fairly and reasonably represent the public policy of Delaware. Senate Joint Resolution no longer could represent the public policy of Delaware as a matter of law. The parties in Docket 19-529 and the hearing examiner do not set the public policy of Delaware. I submit that those are set by the General Assembly and acts signed by the governor, approved by the governor, and also by the public. What does Delaware law tell us then about the public policy of Delaware when it comes to renewable energy versus fossil fuels? First, greenhouse gases are causing climate change and pose risks to our health and our environment. Next, CO2 is identified in Delaware law as a contaminant and that it is in the interest of the state to limit CO2. Next, affordable, reliable, clean energy for all consumers in Delaware is in the public interest and will yield social, economic, and welfare benefits in Delaware for generations to come. Next, natural gas suppliers in Delaware share an obligation to develop a minimum level of these renewable energy resources like solar. The affordability of energy is an important public policy concern. Our complaint alleges, with credible support, that solar and wind are proving more economical than natural gas. Natural gas is no longer an economical option for consumers when you compare it to solar, wind, other renewable resources. On this point, the staff and the public advocate admit that the settlement agreement allows Chesapeake to pay some of the propane conversion costs for propane customers and place those costs in rate base. This will result in lower income and middle-class Delawareans subsidizing the conversions for homes in the $450,000 to $1 million plus range communities served by Sharp Energy with propane. So, and the whole purpose is to allow the millionaires that own those homes to supposedly get cheaper natural gas. It cannot be the public policy of Delaware to have lower income and middle-class customers subsidize millionaires. Next, community-owned energy generating facilities offer advantages for Delawareans as compared to centralized, large-scale energy distribution systems. None of this was recognized in docket 19-529 by the parties or in the hearing examiner's report. These are undeniable facts, the public policy of Delaware, as they are contained in Delaware law. Businesses across the United States are making commitments to go 100% renewable. Having solar power in Delaware is the future for attracting business. On a motion to dismiss, the facts alleged in the complaint are to be accepted as true. The citations we make to Delaware law and public policy are undeniably true. It cannot be disputed that the actual public policy of Delaware is the polar opposite of the policy relied upon to support Commission Order 9594. Next, I would like to move on to subject matter jurisdiction of the Commission to enter Order 9594. The first point I would like to make is that the Commission, having been alerted to the subject matter jurisdiction issue, we submit is obligated to examine and decide, and to decide it in a way that explains the basis for the Commission's assertion of jurisdiction in the case. On December 20, 2018, the Commission entered Order Number 9297, dismissing Chesapeake's previous application, asking the Commission to regulate its propane system's conversion to natural gas. The Commission held that its jurisdiction, quotes, does not extend to Chesapeake's propane rates, property rights, equipment, and facilities. Order number 9594 and the settlement agreement involved the regulation of propane. Particularly, they go to the property rights, equipment, and facilities at propane community gas systems. We raised the question in our answering papers that was not answered in the replies by any of the respondents. If the Commission has jurisdiction over the conversion of individual propane community gas systems to natural gas, how is it that Chesapeake, in the last several years, has converted 3 individual systems from propane to natural gas? If the Commission has jurisdiction over that kind of activity, how could Chesapeake undertake that without Commission approval? The answer is simple. The Commission doesn't have jurisdiction over it, and the past conduct of Chesapeake establishes that the Commission and the staff and the public advocate understand that. How does Order number 9594 in the settlement agreement implicate the jurisdiction of the Commission? There are multiple ways, and these were not addressed in the replies of the staff, the public advocate for Chesapeake. So Chesapeake must file a 3-year propane to natural gas conversion plan. The mere order to file a plan is an assertion of jurisdiction over propane businesses. Under 26 Delaware Code, Section 217, a public utility can be penalized up to $1,000 for failing to comply with the Commission order. Under the settlement agreement, Chesapeake can be penalized for the following: failing to provide temporary propane tanks to customers who are propane customers, not natural gas customers; failing to price the temporary propane tanks supplied to propane customers at cost; failing to capitalize the propane to natural gas conversion costs based upon the actual behind-the-meter cost to convert the home and the appliances; failure to charge the market rates for natural gas conversion activity; and in that regard, Chesapeake appears to be saying that it is going to be Sharp Energy that is going to be charging for the conversions. But whether it's Chesapeake or Sharp, unless those market rates are charged, the propane customer would have the right to bring a complaint before the commission against Chesapeake and presumably Sharp, and that is the assertion of jurisdiction over propane. Not only failing to submit the 3-year conversion plan, but failing to timely amend the plan, which subjected to penalties. Next, failing to provide all propane customers with a full disclosure of the anticipated conversion costs and charges prior to obtaining any customer commitments. Furthermore, the settlement agreement requires propane customers to replace even working propane appliances before the conversion takes place. And as we point out in our papers, because the entire community is going to be converted, there is pressure on propane customers to switch to natural gas, and it should not be the commission's within the commission's jurisdiction to pressure non-regulated customers to switch to a regulated energy source. Now, Chesapeake sees that some of the propane customers will never become natural gas.
Oh, I don't want it.
Yet, the commission asserts jurisdiction over that and the delivery and sale of propane to them.
Are you doing anything else today?
Excuse me, Mr. Murphy. There are some people on the call who do not have their phones on mute, and you're interfering with Mr. Murphy's argument. Would you please, everyone who's on the call, check your phone, make sure it's on mute so we can hear Mr. Murphy. Mr. Murphy, how much longer are you going to be, sir?
About 5 to 10 minutes at most.
Okay, please proceed.
Order number 9297, in which the commission dismissed the previous complaint by Chesapeake, says, propane is clearly not a public utility, and we find we would exceed our legislatively granted authority were we to find that we could regulate Chesapeake's sale and delivery of propane to eventual new natural gas customers. And that is exactly what the settlement agreement does. Whether the commission exceeded its authority by issuing order number 9594 is an important public policy issue. We submit that the commission is regulating propane community gas conversion, and it is beyond its jurisdiction. The association's members own and maintain such systems, and it is Chesapeake's stated intent to use the provisions of its settlement agreement to set the terms to convert those propane systems to natural gas over time, as well as systems owned by others. This is regulatory overreach. The issue of subject matter jurisdiction was not properly and adequately addressed in the hearing examiner's report or order number 9594. Therefore, the order does not meet the requirements for a case decision under the Administrative Procedures Act. The commission did not have subject matter jurisdiction to issue the order, and the commission is now obligated to address it. And I wanted to make this additional point. The association believes that it is vitally important for the commission to address the several issues that have been raised by the complaint in a substantive way. If the matter is appealed to a court, the courts of Delaware have recognized that the commission has, let's say, special experience in the handling of utility matters. It would benefit a court greatly for the commission to do as we request, open the docket, have the issues addressed, and make a ruling with reasoning on each of the significant issues we've raised so that the matter will be right and in a position for a court to fully address it. Next, this commission has subject matter jurisdiction to hear this complaint. Section 206 of Title 26 provides the commission may investigate upon its own initiative or upon complaint in writing any matter concerning any public utility. This is a complaint docket about a matter concerning a public utility and sits within the definition in the statute. The respondent cite to Judge Witham's order in the Superior Court as controlling. It is not. The order does not cite Section 206 of Title 26. It dealt only with a limited issue, the right of a competitor to intervene in a rate proceeding brought by the public utility. Thus, the Commission is confronted here with a Section 206 issue, which appears to be an issue of first impression to our knowledge. As an aside, the public advocate argues that the Superior Court's order is a full-blown opinion. It is not. It is an order. The court that issues the ruling decides the scope of the decision. The Superior Court's order says in bold letters on the first page that it is an order. It does not say that it is an opinion, a memorandum opinion, a slip opinion. It simply says it's an order. The association's position is that the Commission is engaged in the regulation of private propane customers, propane facilities, propane equipment, and disclosures made to propane customers and so forth. The association's members are in the propane business, and the propane business is supposed to be unregulated. As alleged in our complaint, and as set forth in the declaration in Reynolds, the association, its officers, members, owners, employees, and customers are all threatened with injury. And I want to make the point that we do not have to prove an actual ongoing economic injury. All we have to show, with respect to agency action, is that we are threatened with injury. The association has contractual and legal rights to standing as a party as a result of the previous commission docket cited in our complaint. Give me a minute, Mr. Chairman. I want to try to cut this back a little bit and then sum up. The argument is made that the settlement agreement is not binding. Those prior settlement agreements are not binding because of the Chesapeake order. The Chesapeake order did not decide whether all prior settlement contracts entered into with the association are void. The General Assembly cannot pass a law that impairs existing contracts, and we submit that a court cannot declare those past contracts of the association as void. Interestingly, the settlement agreement recognizes that other stakeholders have an interest in the proceedings in that docket, but never defines who they are. We submit that the association has standing. We do not have to prove an immediate injury today. We only have to show that there is a threatened injury. The reply papers, for example, the staff's admits this. So if we look at the staff's reply memorandum, page 11, footnote 37, citing the U.S. Supreme Court case in Valley Forge, that U.S. Supreme Court decision stands for the proposition that with respect to agency action only requires a threatened injury. The association does not have to sit back and wait and do nothing until their systems are converted to Chesapeake natural gas. we suffer an economic injury when a state agency takes action that threatens us with harm. We have established the threat of economic injury here, and we have also established standing with regard to the threat of environmental injury. If for any reason the complaint is considered as having some shortcoming in that regard, we should be permitted leave to amend or supplement the record. The association was not required to intervene in the preceding docket if settlement agreement we challenge. We are told by all of the parties that we had no right to intervene, that the law is ironclad on that, and had we attempted to intervene, they would have opposed it. You cannot tell a party that they have to take an action that they say is illegal, and when we do not take the illegal action, say we should be prejudiced because of it. I wanted to address briefly the waiver of the asymmetric pricing rule. The association has standing to challenge that waiver based on the previous dockets it party to. The waiver provision was designed in part to protect unregulated companies from unfair competition by Chesapeake's affiliates. That was one of the principal purposes of that. No explanation is given in the hearing examiner's report to justify waiver of the asymmetric pricing. Once again, there is no basis stated in the hearing examiner's report approved by the commission. Therefore, we again submit that the rulings in that case do not comply with the Administrative Procedures Act. I wanted to make a final point about public comment before concluding. In docket number 190529, no opportunity was afforded in the scheduling order to provide public comment after the settlement agreement became public. Nor was there any opportunity to provide public comment before the commission issued its ruling, once the hearing examiner's report became public. And before the commission voted on and approved Order 9594, there was no opportunity to provide public comment. The cutoff for public comment was much earlier in March, before the settlement agreement, the hearing examiner's report, and the proposed commission order were available to the public. We submit that that is a practice that should stop. Transparency in public agency action is a very important principle. And we are told that we should have submitted our public comments prior to the time that the settlement agreement was entered. The association had every reason to expect that docket should have been dismissed for lack of subject matter jurisdiction. And to deny us the opportunity to provide public comment after the settlement agreement became public and after the hearing examiner's report became public, we submit was not a good practice, not a transparent practice, and not in the public interest. So this is what we request. The respondents' motions to dismiss should be denied. If they are not, if there's some reason to consider granting them based upon some supposed inadequacy in the pleadings, in the complaint, in the allegations in the complaint, leave to amend should be freely granted to the association. The commission should assign a hearing examiner to this matter, have a procedural schedule established that includes discovery. The commission should address whether it had jurisdiction to issue order number 9594. The procedural schedule that is entered should include full opportunities for public comment, including after the issue of the hearing examiner's report and prior to and in connection with any scheduled commission hearing on a proposed commission order. We submit that the commission should either stay order 9594 while this process is underway, or should direct the parties to confer about a stay, either a whole or partial stay. Thank you.
Mr. Murphy, thank you very much for your argument. We appreciate it. I would just note that I did have a stack of about 50 letters from people making public comment. I would have to set forth, however, the fact that it appeared that each and every letter had almost identical words, almost as if 50 copies had been run off on a copying machine and 50 different people signed the letters. But we did receive 50 letters. And I now move that plus on top of that, actually the public comment is not part of the record, and we have to make decisions based upon the record. And with respect to the Chesapeake's and the DPA and staff's motion to dismiss, I move that the motions be granted on the basis of the arguments of mootness made by Chesapeake and DPA and staff, and ask if there's a second to my motion.
I second your motion.
Commissioner Drexler has seconded the motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Is there anyone opposed? Is there anyone abstaining? I only thought I heard 4. There's 5, I'm sorry. Okay, the motion carries. Number 3 is in the matter of the adoption of rules and procedures thank you, sir. Thank you, gentlemen, ladies. Matter of adoption of rules and procedures to implement the renewable energy portfolio standards, et cetera. Mr. Geddes? What are our legal choices here? In other words, my understanding is that we can remain silent.
So you're not going to go to executive session?
I understand that our legal choices are that we remain silent and that at a certain point in time, the order will be affirmed as an operation of law. Or secondly, if a commissioner makes a motion to follow through with respect to the motion, then if that's successful, we would do that. Are those our 2 options?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. You can choose to pick up the rehearing petition if you'd like, or if you choose to do nothing pursuant to Administrative Code 2.22.3, at the expiration of 60 days, the rehearing and reconsideration that's been filed will be deemed denied by operation of law. Those are the 2 choices. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Geddes. Does any commissioner have any motion with respect to the application of the Delaware Solar Energy Coalition petition?
No.
Hearing none, the commission will adjourn its meeting. Commission meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.